In 2014, a 14-year-old girl named Sarah from the Netherlands sent out a tweet saying that his name was actually Ibrahim and that he's actually with Al-Qaeda, and he tagged American Airlines in this tweet and said he had a big surprise for them on June 1st. Well, within a few minutes, American Airlines responded to her tweet saying that they take these threats very seriously. And Sarah immediately backtracked, saying that her friend was playing a prank on her and that she hadn't actually written that tweet and she was very sorry. But the damage had already been done because she was now wanted by her own government's police. So she had no choice but to turn herself in. And after some extensive questioning, the police realized that she actually wasn't serious and they released her. Netherlands is very far away from the US. But this is to remind you, you should never, ever, ever, ever write out tweets like this. Because governments take these threats very seriously, as they should. And they're gonna do everything they can to get to the bottom of it to ensure that no one gets hurt. So if playing a prank like the one Sarah tried to play has ever crossed your mind, think again and don't do it. The only thing worse than having a Karen for mayor is having a Karen for mayor that drinks and drives. But I promise you it gets worse. This woman's actual name is Karen Williams. She's the mayor of Redland City in Australia. Just a few days ago, she was at an event where she met with several victims of drunk driving. This event was specifically held to raise awareness about drunk driving and stop it. Karen told them she would do whatever she could to stop drunk drivers. Then a few hours later, Karen crashed her car. Police gave her a breathalyzer, into which she blew a .177, which is 3 times the legal limit. This is a mayor of a pretty large city we're talking about here. Karen's defense was that she made a serious error of judgment and that she would learn from it. Yeah, because in the world we live in, politicians can say shit like that and get away with it, right? Actually wrong, because police in Redland City were not gonna let her get away with this. And they ended up slapping her with a drunk driving charge. Good luck getting reelected, and yeah, I did enlarge her forehead in every photo, but I think she kind of deserves it. This woman, Sheila O'Leary, is currently facing a life in prison sentence because she put her 17-month-old baby on a vegan diet. Sheila was a die-hard vegan, and she was raising her son to be vegan just like her. The only things she ever fed her son were raw fruits and raw vegetables, and a little bit of breast milk. Anyone who's had kids knows that you gotta feed your kid a lot more than that. But raw fruits and vegetables are also hard and crunchy, and babies don't really have their teeth grown in, so they can't eat them. But that didn't matter to Sheila because she was so intent on raising her kid vegan. And unfortunately, the baby stopped breathing one day and they took him to the hospital where his heart had stopped. Sheila said that she hadn't fed her baby for a week prior to that, and he wasn't sleeping at night at all. So Sheila and her husband were arrested immediately after because they could have chose to feed their baby a better diet, but they didn't. The coroner even said that the baby died of malnutrition, which could have easily been prevented. And now Sheila will probably never walk free again. This mother forgot to buy diapers for her kid. So the people at daycare wrote a message on her kid to remind her. This woman is Heather Chisholm. She would take her kid to this daycare, and at the end of every day, they would send out reports to every parent. The report they sent Heather was that her kid was all out of diapers, so she had to buy more. But for some reason, Heather didn't open or read the report they sent her. I guess the people at the daycare took that really personally, because the next day they didn't send Heather a report. Instead, they wrote the report on her kid's stomach saying that she needs to buy more diapers. This would piss off any parents. To make matters worse, they wrote the message in permanent marker because Heather tried several times to scrub the writing off her kid, but it just would not come off. Heather wrote a Facebook post about this, which actually went crazy viral, to the point where the daycare had to make a public apology for what happened. And as for the person who actually wrote the message on the kid, she was promptly fired, although I think she probably needs some ethics classes. This woman was left paralyzed because she picked up a $1 bill off the ground. Ren Parson and her husband were just out and about one day when Ren saw a dollar bill on the ground and picked it up without thinking. And literally a few minutes later, her body shut down. She was completely paralyzed and couldn't breathe on her own. Her husband put her in the car and he raced to the nearest hospital. And he got there on time and Ren made a full recovery. And after some investigation, they realized that the dollar bill Ren had picked up had been used to snort fentanyl, which is a very dangerous drug. For reference, this tiny amount of fentanyl will absolutely end you. And people use these banknotes to do this drug. Ren is thankfully alive to tell us the story and warn us of this danger. And if you see banknotes on the ground like this, you really should think twice about picking it up because no amount of money is worth your life. These parents are suing their son because he refuses to move out of their house. Meet 30-year-old Michael Rotondo. He has always lived with his parents, doesn't have a job, and according to his parents is a huge freeloader. His parents tried for years to get him to move out. They gave him eviction letters, gave him over $1,000 so he can go rent a place on his own. But the guy apparently still isn't budging. So his parents had no choice but to take their own son to court because he just wouldn't leave. And Michael is the kind of guy to represent himself in a court case, even though he doesn't know anything about being a lawyer. And it shouldn't be a surprise that in this particular case, the judge voted in favor of the parents. Here is Michael trying to get the judge to change the ruling after it had already been announced. Look, we live in tough times where rent is very expensive, and young people are staying at their parents' houses longer and longer, and that's okay. But there is a big difference between being somebody who still lives at home and being a freeloader. This lifeguard beat Karen at her own game. This woman was a lifeguard at this public pool, and they had a strict policy at this pool. You can't bring outside food or drinks. But of course, Karen doesn't think the rules apply to her because she showed up at this pool with a Starbucks drink in her hand. When the lifeguard told her, you can't bring outside food and drink here, it's the rules, Karen got really angry because apparently she spent $12 on her drink. I mean, that's a huge L in itself. And Karen's other defense? Oh, the public pool in the next town over allows outside food and drinks. But the lifeguard again told her, you can't bring food and drinks into this pool. Well, Karen finally snapped, and she decided to pour her coffee into the pool, which turns out was a pretty stupid decision because now she had committed a crime that was disturbing the peace, which is a violation of state law. So the lifeguard was now able to call the cops, and Karen was arrested and spent the rest of the day in the county jail. This guy sued McDonald's for making him fat and won. But this wasn't just any guy, this was a McDonald's manager. This story takes place in Brazil, where this guy managed a McDonald's for 12 years. And a part of his daily job was to test the food to make sure it was up to certain quality standards. He did this and ate their food every day for 12 years, which caused him to gain 65 pounds. And according to his lawsuit, this caused him a lot of mental and physical distress. So he sued McDonald's, and I don't think he thought he was gonna win, but he must have gotten a really good judge because the judge ruled that McDonald's had to pay him $17,500, which is about the same amount of money that McDonald's pays their workers on a yearly basis. I personally don't think that McDonald's managers should be responsible for the quality of their food. I mean, if you're going to McDonald's, you've already accepted the fact that you're not gonna eat quality food. So I think the L is on McDonald's for even having a policy like that in the first place. If an airplane pilot ever tells his passengers to start praying while the plane is flying over an ocean, it might be time to start panicking. This Air Asia plane took off from Australia. 2 hours into the flight, the pilot realized they had a major problem. One of the plates in one of the engines was missing, which somehow the inspectors didn't notice. So the pilot decided to turn around and fly back to Australia. That's a 2-hour flight back across the Indian Ocean. And according to the passengers, the plane was shaking violently for that entire 2-hour ordeal. And to make matters even scarier, the pilot made an announcement to the passengers, asking them to please pray to whatever God they believe in for their survival. Some passengers were completely panicking. Others were coming to terms with the fact that they might die very soon. After 2 petrifying hours, the plane landed safely back in Australia and everybody was safe. I don't know exactly who this pilot was, but he did an amazing job getting that faulty plane back to land safely and saving everyone's life on board. If you're gonna fart on an airplane, the last thing you want is for the FBI to get involved. But that's what happened to this woman. Apparently she had some kind of stomach condition, but for whatever reason, she just couldn't hold it back. She let a silent one rip on the airplane, but apparently it smelled really bad because she then proceeded to light a match in an attempt to mask the smell. But the thing is, when you light a match on an airplane, people tend to notice that kind of thing. And some people were panicking because they didn't know that the match was causing the smell of the burning. And it turns out when you light something on a plane, you might cause that plane to have to make an emergency landing in a different city. And the FBI might get involved, which they did. FBI searched this plane for more than 3 hours looking for any kind of contraband. When they didn't find anything, they let the plane take off again. But this woman was not allowed back on, and she actually got a lifetime ban from all American Airlines flights because lighting any kind of fire on a plane is probably one of the dumbest things you can ever do.